So let's start. Thanks everybody for joining this session. Today we are trying to find the answer to what is the best system between replication and virtualization when it comes to data.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for attending this session. I'm Saidani Yosra. I'm Salesforce architect at Cloudity. I'm a Paris Women in Tech Trailblazer community with Doria. And we are a co-organizer of the French Touch Dreaming.
Like she said, the same for me. I'm MVP also, and Golden Hoodie. Okay, if case you want to download the presentation, you have also the QR code on each slide, so no need to make picture part of maybe this one, and then you're free. Also because we need your attention, this kind of session will be a bit interactive, not kind of, okay, you sit down and you listen.
Okay, so let's start with the definition of each mechanism. Data replication is the process of copying data from one system to another and keeping them synchronized. Imagine that we have a master system that provides the temperature of each country. Replication means that every system that needs this information will have their copy from the master system. So when the master system is updated, all other systems need to get their copy synchronized. And what about virtualization?
So in virtualization, it's a bit different. You have one master system owning the data, and if another system also need to, I don't know, to display, to use, or to calculate this data, they will be based on the first system. So you don't copy the data, you just, welcome. So you just see the data from the master one.
In Salesforce context, we have many tools that we can use in data replication or data virtualization. Some tools can be used from both systems, and some other will be dedicated to replication or virtualization. Some tools are simple to set up, some others are more complicated, needed more customization or development. It's very important to notice that tools is the second level of decision because you need at first to decide to go for replication or virtualization. And this is the aim of our session today, to give you, to help you to have the best choice according to your business needs or technical constraint.
Okay, let's start from a use case because everything begins with a business use case. Let's say you are working in Salesforce, that's your basic environment. But for the orders, like in any system, it's outside Salesforce. You have an ERP, for example, and you need to retrieve the orders from the client. So you have in Salesforce the client, and once you have in Salesforce the client page, you also need to see the orders. No need to create, modify, or anything. In Salesforce, just see them, okay? That's the business use case.
So this session will be structured as a battle with 3 rounds. So we need your attention. I will represent the data replication with my red t-shirt. And Doria will represent the virtualization with the blue one. So at the end of each round, we will ask you to vote for the solution that convinces you. So please raise the colored scale at the end of each round to vote for the solution that convinces you. It's okay? Okay, so let the battle begin.
Okay. In my opinion, one most important thing in business analysis is the freshness of data. If I'm a business user and I'm using a solution, I want to have the up-to-date data. So in virtualization, because you are always based on the master system, you are sure 100% to have the last up-to-date data. And you?
In my side, I can ensure that data will be synchronized in real time or not real or near real time. But if your data is not time sensitive, a batch proof, I think it can be good enough. In this case, when we ask about data freshness, it's very important to ask what happens when the master system is down. In data replication, and because the data is copied and available in local, the user can access to the data without any latency, and the data will be available even the master system is down or even the data is not synchronized anymore. What about you?
So in virtualization, it's a bit different because you will be seeing the data owned by another system. So in terms of outage, if your master system is down, it's down. I mean, you don't have the data available also for the external system. Of course, you can set up kind of backup solution for the master system, and then it becomes more complicated. So basically, system down, everything's down. Also, another point when it comes to the data availability, you also have the data storage. For example, in the virtualization, because you don't own the data, you don't copy it, you don't need to think about storage, because you don't have storage.
It's not the same thing in data replication. It's completely the opposite because we copy the data, we replicate the data, so we need an extra storage allocation. So more you replicate the data, higher the cost will be. And when we talk about data storage, it's very important to discuss about the purge. In data replication, so the same thing, we replicate the data, we copied the data, so we have the data in different systems, and the data will be copied across the different systems, so it can be complex because each system needs to implement her own purge rules. It's complex, but it can be flexible. What about data virtualization?
It's more limited because you don't own the data. So it means that if for some reason your master system decides to purge the data, you don't get it. So it's gone forever. On the other side, it's easier because when it comes to purge and legal constraints, then you don't care about the purge. It's always mastered by the master system, and for the delegate system, they just benefit from the strategy. So less flexible, but also easier. And because we are talking about the purge, you also have all the other things to think about, like the GDPR, the PII data, and so on. It's the same. In the virtualization, it's based on the master system. So you put the strategy there, and all the other systems, they will benefit of it. They don't care about this.
And this is the end.
Oh, and this is the end, yeah. Not this, oh, yeah. Like she said, for the data replication, it's quite different. So, what do you think about those arguments? Which strategy should fit the needs there? At least.
Okay, so thank you. So Okay, so let's start with the round number 2 with authorization and authentication. In data replication, it depends on the direction of your integration. If the data is pushed by an external system, the external system needs to be authenticated through a connected app. If the data is pulled from Salesforce needs to be authenticated to the external system, but we can use an out-of-the-box solution like an ESV for the integration. And what about virtualization?
In the use case we took, we are in Salesforce and we are requesting data from an external system. So you need to authenticate to this external system. No, because you are in an external system and you don't own the data, you will need to think about also the access, visibility, and so on the other side. And mainly it's done into the integration. You have to manage this kind of framework because it's outside Salesforce. Data access is a really important point because on our side, if it's replicated in Salesforce, we master it. We know about the visibility framework in Salesforce. But if it's outside, then this master system, they also need to have kind of technique like SSO and also identity alignment between the system. If I'm logged in Salesforce and I request another system, then those two user to it's only one individual needs to be aligned. So it's a bit complex.
Okay, in data replication, so about the data access. So in data replication, we have two steps. At first, we need to receive or retrieve the data. Then it's very important to decide about data visibility and the visibility for data for our users. So in data replication, like the other argument, we are copying the data, so we can implement our data policies, our visibility of users, so it's more flexible. But it's also complex because we have many systems, many data movement. Each system have their own copy, so it's very complex because you need to implement the data visibility and data access in each system. It's recommended that all data visibility will be aligned across the different systems, but it's not mandatory. We can have more flexibility to implement your own data visibility on your system. And it's very important when we discuss about visibility to discuss about troubleshooting. The flexibility in data replication can be a source of problem because even we have many systems, many teams, master system, a copy of each system in the other system. When we have an error in synchronization, it's very complex to identify the source of error because we have many systems. It can be involved by a business rules in Salesforce side. We can have a missing field in the other system. If we use the ETL, we can have an issue due to the mapping of the data. So troubleshooting, it's very important, but it can be very difficult to identify and to debug the error, and we involve more teams. What about data virtualization?
First impression is it's easier because you have Salesforce on one side, another system on the other side. You do integration point to point, and if you have problem, it's two things: the request or the response you get. There is no 10 reason or 10 places to check for the errors. So I think it's maybe easier to manage. On the other side, you also need, if you go for virtualization, you also need to think about a bit more of a mutualization of your effort by setting up an API management. And here in terms of troubleshooting, you could also implement automated logs for all your system. I think it's also one of the best approach to have for the troubleshooting, to really think about, okay, I have one master system that will be serving all the delegate system. I need to be able to have only one API for all of them. So you will reduce the number of errors that you can have across all the systems. And then the last point for this one is still about troubleshooting, because when we talk about troubleshooting, you can have the worst case, system down. Well, in virtualization, as I said, if the master is down, you don't get any data. But on the other side, when the master is up again, you don't have anything to do. I mean, there is no synchronization of data because you don't replicate the data. And this is a big difference with the replication.
Okay, and for the last point, in data replication, it's also depend of the way that you sync your data. If the data is pushed by an external system, the external system need to resync all data to Salesforce. And if the data is pulled from Salesforce, it will be implemented on the Salesforce side. And this is the end of round number 2. It's your turn to vote. Wow, thank you for the red choice. More flexible. Thank you. So it's the last round.
So as I said, I'm a system based on request and reply. So in virtualization, you really need to take into consideration the number of seconds that will be needed for the external system to answer. I mean, if it takes 10 seconds, it's not an approach to have. Then you will basically go for replication.
Okay, it's not the same thing because in data replication, the data is in local, the data is available in the system, so we don't have this consideration and the user can access the data without any latency. But it's important to consider that in data replication, because we request the data to the master system, we have probably some latency. We can have latency in data movement. So in this case, it's important to consider that we can have in this case a time desync the data.
Yes, also another point to consider in virtualization is the treatment. For example, you are calculating or changing things, depends. If you go for request and reply, then you are depending on the response time. If you go for async process, then it's a bit different. So it really depends on the way you will integrate with the other system. And also the scalability. It's really important to think about it because when you have millions of, imagine you have one database and you have 1 billion of records there and you want to request it in real time, maybe it will take too long for you to get the answer. So keep in mind that when it comes to scalability, you also need to take into consideration the large data volume you have in your org or the external system.
Okay, it's very important also to discuss about scalability, even in data replication, because we copy the data, we manage a large data volume. So it's very important to consider some process impact like data skew and sharing calculation. And as I said on the troubleshooting point, it's very important also in data replication to have a robust monitoring system. As I said, we have many systems, we have many data movement, we have data requests across the different systems. So as I said, if we have troubleshooting, it's very difficult to debug it. So the solution is to have a robust and detailed monitoring system that allow us to have some detailed information about this data movement and to be able to detect promptly if we have error in synchronization. What about virtualization?
Simple virtualization, there are many things that exist in terms of virtualization and the monitoring that comes with it. As I said, if you use an API management, then the monitoring can be centralized there. If you have other system integrated, then it can also be done in each system. Best way is to have both. You need to track everything, like in OpenTelemetry, for example. And the last point, like we started, like we end, business, it's also great to consider the time to market and the time needed to implement your project because, of course, in virtualization, once it's implemented, you can reuse it because we are in an API world. It's on the other side, you reuse it, but once you have to modify it, it will take more time because you have a huge impact analysis to consider all the systems that are integrated with this API.
In data replication, we have more customization, more implementation than data virtualization. So the data replication, the data replication is more time consumed than data virtualization. And to finish with agility, so in data replication, when we have update to implement, the effort will be spent between the different teams. And this is the end of this round number 3. Oh, okay. So we finish the round.
So as we see for data replication and data virtualization, depending on the direction of your integration, we have plenty of tools available in Salesforce ecosystem. Still adding tools over time. And it's important also to mention that here in this whole discussion, we didn't talk much about all the limits, but keeping in mind because it's the basic, maybe the first decision you should take.
And this is time to conclude. So, what do you think? Virtualization? Replication? I think we cannot have the winner between data replication and data virtualization because each solution depend on various factors like use case, business requirement, data architecture, technical constraint, so time and budget. So it's very important to take your decision depending on all these factors.
Yes, and final word also here in this presentation, we didn't get the answer to the first question, but at the end you have a kind of framework that can be used. Here are the main points that we use in our daily project to choose between replication and virtualization, knowing that you can have both on this side. So if you have to make a decision, do the same. Take all those points, sit down with the business, with the tech guys, and decide about all the things, and then do the balance between both systems. And that's it.